Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a episode of Mavs Moneyball After Dark. You are joined by Kirk Henderson and Ben Zadell. Ben, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Kirk. I'm ready. The schedule release we're going to talk about has got me all hyped up for basketball again. So
yeah, it's nice. It's weird. I recorded the show earlier today. We're recording on the evening of Wednesday, August 17th. It'll probably go up on the morning of the 18th. I recorded the show with a friend that I finally met in Vegas the first time, Katie Heindel, and her and I did kind of a more, she runs this blog called, or the Substack called Basketball Feelings. And it's a little more like, trying to think how to describe it. It's like it's a bit more of like a philosophical basketball pod, and this is much more like, okay, we're back into the grind. And and this is really just kind of the nature of the content that we do. Like, I thrive on repetition and on stuff happening. And when stuff isn't happening, I get really out of the mix and I don't want to do anything. Right. And now that we're kind of inching, because we got about 6 weeks until stuff really happens, but we're gonna start, the schedule alone is kind of plenty. Like, there's so much stuff to like just project onto it. It's gonna be great. But before we discuss the schedule, earlier today, and through a hilariously ridiculous TV service that I have, which send me a direct message if you're curious as to what it is, I was actually able to watch the friendly match between Slovenia and Serbia today, as kind of a tune-up to Eurobasket. Now, Ben had told me before he didn't get to see any of it. Obviously, he hasn't really seen anything other than probably a couple of, highlight, like, things on Twitter where people were going nuts. So I'm just going to kind of have a little bit of soliloquy for a minute. The Team Slovenia won 97-92 in overtime. It was a very entertaining basketball game. Our guy Luka Doncic had 34 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists. Part of the reason it went into overtime is because he had three like of the most ridiculous Luka Doncic possessions in a row with about 4 minutes left, where Slovenia is up by, like, I want to say between 4 and 7 points, takes a bad three, takes another bad three, has a horrendous turnover, and all of a sudden it's tied. Then down the stretch, he, hit some clutch free throws to help send the game into overtime, and then Slovenia just scored more than the other team. The Serbia has a ton of talented players, and obviously led by, like, Nikola Jokic. And it's so funny watching Luka and Jokic play, because they get grouped together, and they shouldn't, but because they're Euros. But I think they each have this, like, anticipatory game where they do, the, like, Doctor Strange and the multiverse thing, where they can see things as it's going to happen. So, like, watching them play is so fun. And, like Luka he's more carefree, whereas, like, Jokic sometimes looks like he doesn't care at all. But, like, once the game kind of got down to the wire, both teams started playing really hard. Like, Jokic, for example, had 31 points, 12 rebounds and 6 assists. It was definitely one of those games. Like Jokic really stuck it to American with a Slovenian passport. Where's our guy? Where did he go? Mike Toby, who actually played a pretty dang good basketball game himself. But it's just Jokic is such a talented player. And Luka he just looked great. He looked crisp. He finished up as the roll man in a pick and roll. He was doing all sorts of stuff. And it's just another reminder that like the Mavericks have to get more creative and force him to do different stuff. He played with like Goran Dragic only played for like 5 minutes and then was in street clothes. Goran's brother Zoran played, who's hilariously listed as a shooting guard / small forward, even though he's the same size as Goran basically. Played like 30 minutes. The Slovenian team is really interesting. Like they really seem to click in all the right ways. They're going to be really fun to watch in the upcoming Eurobasket. I think there's at least one more friendly before all this stuff gets started. And Mark Stein, I texted him today to ask him a question. This is not like official because I don't know, but I want to say that it's ESPN Plus should have like the actual Eurobasket games, which could be fun for those of us who have ESPN Plus subscriptions. Okay, that's enough soliloquizing from me. Let's talk about this schedule. So, according to reports, the Mavericks are going to play 82 basketball games next year. Ben, what jumps out at you with this basketball schedule?
Right off the bat, that first stretch of 4 games, there's 3 of the first 4 are on the road, and then it's Phoenix, Memphis, New Orleans. So those are 3 tough opponents, 2 of them, in the division. And then the last game there is Brooklyn. And we don't know, is Brooklyn going to be Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving Brooklyn, or is it going to be some dull husk of that with Ben Simmons? So, but either way, that's still a pretty tough stretch to open up, especially the 3 out of 4 on the road. So, no favors to the Mavs on that schedule. So,
yeah. And that's one but I will say that at least in the early goings, now this is me skimming through it. Their first back-to-back is still in October, but it's a Oklahoma City, Orlando back-to-back at home. Back-to-backs are something I tend to kind of keep a close eye on throughout the year because where they, look to rest guys and find like elements of load management. We've talked a fair amount this offseason that the Mavericks don't really have a third ball handler. So where they are able to get those opportunities for rest, like, those first 4 games are brutal, but if they're able to play, it's interesting. Oklahoma City and Orlando are going to be feistier this year. So that's kind of that strikes me as like a sneaky. It's strange too, because the Saturday Oklahoma City game is at 8 p.m. and then the Sunday Orlando game is at 6:30 p.m. So you're basically playing another game on about 20 hours of rest. That's screwy. I mean, at least it's at home.
Yeah, especially
that's me getting into the weeds.
Yeah, that's like what it's 20. Yeah, that's a little ridiculous. But and again, it is OKC and Orlando. And I know the tendency that they've had the last couple of years between Kidd and Carlisle, so it's coming, I guess from higher up, is to throw away one of those games. And I just really wish they wouldn't do that, especially early in the season. Mm-hmm. It's nicer. I prefer a little bit more in the March or April to kind of throw away one of those back-to-back games.
Sure.
You kind of have an idea about your standings. Starting off, like October through December, I would just win as many games as you can, build a cushion if you can, because you just don't know with the injuries and stuff like that.
That's exactly right. The 1920 season, when the Mavericks started off 16-5, they've not got off to a good start since then, because they got off to a poor start due to COVID and injuries. They were 19-4 at one point in the I want to say, well, I guess that would make it the 2021 season. Yeah, the 2021 season. Then the 2020 or 21-22 season, which is one we just got by, the Mavericks played 500 basketball through the new year. So it's like notching some wins early. And the Mavericks have like a real opportunity if you're kind of looking at this. Like, we'll see how long we work our way through this. But, they play Orlando and they play Brooklyn twice in the first month And so they won't see those teams the rest of the year. And like you said, if Kevin Durant isn't playing, like there's some real opportunity in this early schedule. It's very home heavy in the first 2 months. So October and November, they play 3, 8. They only play 11 away games. So home, regardless of strength of schedule, like there's a real opportunity looking at this schedule for the Mavericks to notch some wins early before they head into a slightly more road heavy, but definitely more game heavy December. Like they play a ton of games in December.
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense.
They've really got to, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they've really got to win as many as they can, because actually around the Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving, that schedule gets really tough. They've got 2 games against Denver, and then Boston, Toronto, and Milwaukee all on the road. Then they come back and face Golden State. I mean, that's a rough stretch. And then, like you said, they head into December with 17 games, 9 of those on the road.
Gosh, so 17 games in 31 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot of basketball.
So starting, the week before November, the week before Thanksgiving, we get really, we're going to find out about this Mavericks team really fast, I think. So by New Year's, we're going to have a really good idea of how tough, is this a contender or not? Are they like they were last year, or, is losing Brunson something, is that a huge minus that we think it is, or are they going to be able to hold it together? I think we're going to find out by January. There's not going to be any doubt.
Well, you hit on something in that November and then December stretch that's kind of worth touching on now. Mark Stein tweeted about this. How many of these kind of like baseball series games that the NBA is tilted towards? I've not alluded to it. I've been rambling about it for the past 6 weeks that I think it's very interesting that the league is leaning towards this. The Mavericks play 6 of these type series, and it's 2 games in a row in the same location against the same team. They play Denver both times at home in early November. They play Minnesota twice in a row in mid to second half of December. They play Portland twice in a row on a back-to-back in mid-January, Sacramento, and a back-to-back in early February. Then a really fascinating pair of games, which will probably kind of decide the division, like who has like the division lead in mid-March, where they play Memphis and at Memphis, then back in Dallas a day later. Then they all kind of rounded out later that month with a pair of games against Charlotte. Though, do you like this sort of scheduling? What do you think?
I do, especially, and then the other thing they're doing now is the LA games or the New York games, where they'll have them play the Knicks and the Nets in the same, couple days. Same thing, the Clippers and the Lakers in the same couple days. I do like it. It makes, we always talk about the travel kind of affecting the basketball and how the basketball was really good. So I mean, if it cuts down the travel, I mean, it's really. For me, the only negative you could say is that if you, for instance, want to go see Jokic play, and you're just not available the week that Denver's in town, then that kind of sucks. But overall, I think it's better for the product. I think it's cool, and just knock out some of these games. It's really weird sometimes where the thing I hate is where let's just take the Spurs for example. The Mavericks will play the Spurs like twice in November and then not play them again until like April. And then there's like one more, a couple games in April. So it's kind of weird. I like just let's get all the games for some of these teams out of the way early. So it's, it's a nice wrinkle. There's, nothing wrong with it. I like it.
Yeah. And to get us, I sort of threw us off track when we were kind of looking at this big picture. The January schedule is very road heavy, contains what ends up being the tied for the second longest, or they play a 5-game road trip in January and a 5-game road trip in February, which end up being, those are the 2 longest road trips of the Mavericks year. Those games are going to be, on paper right now, the January road trip looks pretty passable. The Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be competitive this year, but they're still young. Then they play the Clippers, who are going to be monsters. The Lakers, who might be paper tigers. Then Portland, who I think will be terrible in that back-to-back that I mentioned. But the January schedule is kind of littered with trap games to me, where it looks like at least this far out, depending on health, obviously that tends to hold true regardless. A number of games where the Mavericks might just kind of need to make it through this month above like sticking at 500. Just what any games here leap out at you?
Yeah, that stretch you talked about is the teams are not the teams are not good quality, like you mentioned, but that's 6 games in 9 days. That's just rough. If you break it down the math there, 6 games in 9 days is tough for any team, anybody you're playing. So you just depending on, it's too much right now to go look at the schedules of those other teams and see where
Right.
they're coming off of. But 6 games in 9 days is rough. But you do have some good games there. Overall, it's a pretty easy January schedule when you take out the, that, like I said, that terrible stretch of that's the, like you said, tied for the longest road trip, 6 games in 9 days. But you've got a lot of weak teams in there like Houston, Washington, Utah, Detroit, OKC, like you mentioned. Who knows? The Lakers, will they be quality or not? I think that
Right.
depend on Anthony Davis. So it's one of those things where I just worry that the actual schedule of the basketball games will hurt them more than the actual opponents.
Sure. Yeah. Because at that point in the year, it's funny. The Mavericks in this past season, a significant number of players, including Luka Doncic, basically didn't play a significant part of that month due to injury or COVID or what have you. And I think that ended up benefiting like Luka because he ended up getting in shape. So it's, being in shape, being able to maintain weight, being able to play through nickel and dime injuries is going to be pretty important. And then, which leads you into a February schedule, which is pretty, it has one home game against New Orleans, and New Orleans just scares me. Zion Williamson scares me. Then they play 6 of their next 7 on the road to kind of figure out how to get into All-Star break, which is, it's only an 8, it's like a 7. I mean, it ends up being like a 6-day break. It's never as long as you think it is when you're looking at the calendar is kind of what I'm getting at. And then they have kind of a massive, I don't know, ends up being like a 2-week homestand where they play 6 games that starts like ends February and starts March. And at that point in the year, I think that like talking about it this far out doesn't really make a ton of sense, but they play a lot of what we expect at this point in time, a lot of playoff eligible teams. Like this last season, we loved March and April basketball because the games mattered. And the way the NBA has this schedule set up for the Mavericks, at least on paper here, I'm looking at this, like I don't see a single one of these teams in March that looks like a team that should be out of playoff contention. What do you think?
Maybe Utah.
Maybe
they got that one Utah game.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, just Utah.
And that's a tough ending there because it's 6 out of 8 on the road to finish out March. And then they got Memphis 3 times in 9 days. So that's just a wild March. It's gonna be fun because you got Philly, Phoenix, New Orleans, Memphis 3 times, Golden State. I mean, so that's gonna be a huge.
And then you're right. It ends up being 8 and 10 on the road if you go from March into April.
Yeah, and then Philadelphia twice in that month. So basically starting off and finishing March with the 76ers.
Right.
And they're, I don't know how much you believe in what they've done this offseason to improve, but they kind of just always give Dallas trouble.
Oh yeah,
the last couple of years, just because I think Embiid is just so big. That in the past they've been so big. They're not as big as they were since they traded Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they were just kind of a monster team and kind of tough for the Mavs to play against. So that's a tough month. Yeah, I was thinking that when I was looking over the schedule is. And I had to stop myself because, again, we're talking about March and April here in the middle of August.
Things could be very different.
Right.
Yeah.
Who knows which of these teams are going to be good, bad, or ugly. But, man, like it's not the cakewalk that they had last year that you could kind of, build up your strength going into the playoffs and get some good wins to get the confidence up, get the standings up. So we'll see. I mean, that April stretch looks pretty good. depending on where you think Atlanta, Sacramento, and Chicago are going to be, you would assume San Antonio is not going to be very good. That's the last game of the season.
Right.
It seems like it's always San Antonio to end the season.
It does. I think like I'd be curious. Like that might be, if we do like a scheduled quirks piece, that might be kind of funny to go look at, just as like, because it's happened the last 2 years at least, and this is going to make 3.
Yeah. So it seems like the NBA is just obsessed with the Spurs and the Mavericks finishing off the season somehow, some way or the other. So, yeah, I mean, man, like I said, it's getting me excited. Just looking at these over and over again. I'm just getting excited about basketball again.
Well, and then there's some other things which are, sort of flexible, but not really. When you look at like the second half of the season, the NBA has a little more. After football ends, they apparently have some options with their flex scheduling. But on paper right now, the Mavericks have 30 national TV games, which is the 7th most. And then when you take a look at like removing the NBA TV games, because a lot of people don't have NBA TV, the Mavericks actually have 21 nationally televised games, which means ABC, TNT, and ESPN. And 21 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 again. And I think 21 is about right. I like these matchups, these games. We just talked about the schedule in its entirety, but some of the ones that are going to be on ESPN and TNT are true prime time games. I mean, Phoenix, everybody knows we start the season with Phoenix, and then game 3, it's against New Orleans on TNT. That's going to be a fantastic basketball game. Anybody that really remembers the last time the Mavericks and Zion really went up to head, it was like KP and Luka versus Zion, and what was one of the highest scoring games that I can remember from the last few seasons.
And wasn't that the game where Maxi Kleber like really shut down Zion too, like at the end of the game?
Like at the perfect time after just getting bulldozed.
That was the first time that I was like, oh, Maxi can like play some defense maybe. Mm-hmm. So that was like one of the first times I kind of flipped the switch on Maxi and was like, okay, this guy's not just some guy left over from our rebuilding period here. So
there's a pair of bangers in early December where they go on Tuesday TNT against Denver, and then Friday against Milwaukee. And that's, if the Mavericks are in a good place there, that's kind of in a rival party, so to speak. Like the Mavericks draw a lot of attention. It's Luka Doncic, and I'm not like, this is not like Dirk. I think that's one thing everybody we need to all understand. Like Dirk, Dirk needs more respect. Like Luka is a global icon. They want, they play on Christmas Day. We have the 1:30 p.m. slot game against the Los Angeles Lakers in Dallas. Okay. That means that the NBA knows Slovenia is going to be watching. Part of Europe's going to be watching. This is a worldwide guy. And I'm pretty pleased with this slate of nationally televised games. I don't have a lot of complaints.
That Milwaukee, that Friday in December, Milwaukee 9:00 local start time is rough. However,
sure, no, for the people going to the game 9:00.
Right, I'm not going to complain about like watching it on TV, but for anybody going to that game at 9:00, man, like, and especially on ESPN, that probably means a 9:15 start date or start time. So, man, like, shout out to everybody who goes to that game. You guys.
Well, here's something for you. Here's something for you, since I was apparently the cause for some late game flex problems since I tweeted this out.
100%.
Listen to this.
Schedule jinx.
On Saturday, February 11th, the Mavericks play at Sacramento at 9 p.m. After that game, they have, at least right now, they have one game the rest of the regular season that starts after 8 o'clock. They played the Lakers on March 17th. Every other game is an 8 or 7:30 or earlier start time.
Yeah, I don't that's good news. That 8 o'clock is Denver, and then that's in February, and then after that, you're right. There's nothing even at 8. So hopefully that holds up. Hopefully you didn't jinx us in as early as August, because I mean that was rough. Because wasn't it like four games after that?
It was. It was like, we don't have anything. I called it Luby's time, and then we just kept getting rescheduled to these later games.
So that, like I said, hopefully your power is fading after that one.
I'm saying it now so that no one will remember, 6 months from now. Trying to think what else we got here. So according to the Mavs press release, there's 13 total back-to-backs. That's probably That's probably about average. There's no real complaints there. 6 of those begin and end on the road. 5 are home and home, and 2 require no travel, which is interesting. Other than that, I'm kind of just, I'm kind of jazzed up. Like tickets, the Mavericks, and this is important for those of you who are listening in the Dallas area. Ticket sales start on Thursday, August 25th, which is about, like, by the time you're listening, it's like a week from the time you're listening to this. And then, that's for exclusive pre-sale stuff. Sorry. Then for Saturday, August 27th, is when the general public can start buying some of these games. But, if you want to get single game package tickets, I recommend doing so. It's kind of the Mavericks, like the cost of a Mavericks ticket, hate to tell everybody, it's only going to go up.
Yeah, it's not, man. Especially if you got used to buying on down in the down years, in like 2016 to like 2017, 2018. Man, it's bad. But hey, the product is a lot better. There's also I don't know if you want to talk about the Bally Sports News, the app.
Glad
that's a
you brought that up.
thing, especially
talk to me about this
schedule. So the Bally Sports, I think it's going to be called Bally Sports Plus. So that's been a huge problem here in the Dallas area that it's tough to watch the Mavericks. I think from what I've seen is Denver is the only market that's tougher to watch the actual NBA team there. So right now you can only watch Mavs games on Bally Sports if you have DirecTV / AT&T or Spectrum, I believe. None of the other streaming like YouTube TV or anything like that carries Bally Sports. But starting September 26th, they're going to have the Bally Sports Plus app, where for $20 a month, I believe, you can stream Stars and Mavericks games. And I believe once baseball season rolls around, the Rangers. So that I think is going to be huge for just getting people to be able to watch the Mavericks, because I think everybody $20 for a streaming app sounds like pretty high, but when you consider how much, if you're the type of fan that's just really into it and you're just,
if you're a real local fan, there's a lot of sports to watch.
Yeah, and so you're probably paying for DirecTV, AT&T, or Spectrum right now, and so you can just cut that out and $20 a month go for Bally Sports. Now, I don't know, we'll yet to see how good that app is, how clunky it can be. Sometimes these newer apps, the user experience is not the greatest. I haven't heard Bally Sports has an app right now that you can use to stream things, but you've got to have that DirecTV or AT&T account already. So this will be directly with Bally Sports. So
this seems like on its face. So before we have any user experience, this feels like a step in the right direction. People are never going to be happy with this shit. Let's just be honest. But it's something,
right? It's access, and that's been the biggest problem is the access thing, because there's also the consideration. When you say it's only on Spectrum or AT&T DirecTV, sometimes you're just in a neighborhood where you can't get those services. You're through just whatever kind of infrastructure you're dealing with, you're bound to cable company X, whatever you want to say. And like now, if you've got the internet, you can watch the Mavericks. So that's huge. It's a little expensive, I agree, but it's worth it. And I'm sure they'll probably have some sort of trial thing where you can try it out, and if you don't like it, and especially if you're one of the I know a lot of people that I talk with a lot on Twitter are huge sports fans who are really, I'm not as big a Stars fan as a lot of people, but there are huge Stars, Rangers, and Mavs fans. Like, they just live and die with every game of those three teams. So that's worth it for those three teams. That's
how many days think about the Stars stuff, because the way the hockey games start, particularly on like you in theory could be kind of like surfing between Stars and Mavs games and basically watching like 5.5 hours of sports some nights. So I could really see that. That's a good point.
Yeah, once hockey seasons and basketball season starts, you're basically using that app every day almost. So
yeah, which is, and if you're paying $20 a month for something you use every day, I just, that's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
you want to enjoy, like, this is the thing, and I'm speaking largely to any of our younger users. Something you use every day is not a luxury; it is a necessity. So, like, I started buying like nicer. Like, I work from home, so like I started buying like nicer like shorts and shirts because I'm in them all the time. So it's like, if I'm like $20 a month is fantastic for something that I'm watching every day. Just is.
Yeah.
Full stop. That's me, getting on my old man soapbox. Trying to think, like we have like a lot of stuff in the kind of hopper that we're thinking about doing, but I'm trying not to like kick anyone's ass yet on our staff because like we really ground out work last year, and I'm
Yeah.
not ready yet. Like even in the preseason, if anybody, you know, our hardcore readers and listeners like know this, like you go to Mavs Moneyball starting kind of mid-September in a year, there's just going to be stuff. We'll do that again this year. We're probably not putting out as much as you guys like. We've had, a couple of the comments that we get on stuff where it's like, what is this? And it's like, guys, this is the first real off season we've had since COVID started. Like, we're just pulling shit out of our ass.
I think people got really used to, I talked about being like excited about basketball again. Between the bubble, the compressed season, and then the regular type season right after that, I got burned out on basketball. I'm not even gonna lie. I was rough. And then I think people got used to the usual regular season / playoff content just for like 18 months straight. And so they're not used to like, hey, it's August. There's literally nothing happening, and nothing's going to happen until either training camp or Kevin Durant gets traded. So hey, this is the time to be goofy on the website, catch up on shows, movies, stuff like that.
You watch anything? I just finished the most recent Only Murders in the Building season 2.
Only Murders, yeah. Waiting for the finale next week, so excited about that. The Bear. You guys all recommend The Bear. Finish The Bear.
Did you see the peanut butter and jelly spoof of The Bear?
Yes. It was incredible.
For anybody who doesn't know, The Bear is a Hulu show. It's about 3.5 hours long total.
Yeah, 8 episodes, I think. Yeah, and they're all like 20,
I don't
20
recommend it
minutes.
in one sitting.
No,
if you watch like in one sitting, it's like it's a reminder of your worst and best job experiences, no matter if you worked in the food industry or not.
That is the best way to put it. I kind of binged it, not like all in one day, but it was like over 3 days, and I was stressed out afterwards. It's 100% a show that you probably, like it's too late now, but probably once a week is a great way to like consume that. If it's too late for that, so maybe like once every couple of days.
I gotta have you on. Josh doesn't watch shit.
Yeah, though my big recommendation right now would be Reservation Dogs.
Okay,
that on Hulu. Oh my,
what's the elevator pitch?
It is just a group of teenagers that live on a reservation in Oklahoma, and them trying to understand their place in that community, and possibly some of them want to escape it, some of them are trying to embrace it. It is. I mean, me and my wife just finished watching the latest episode, and it got very dusty. It's one of those shows that pulls off, like you're laughing, and then all of a sudden, like a minute later, you're almost in tears.
Sure.
Just like I said, one of the best shows I've seen recently. So,
did you ever watch Mythic Quest?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Dying for new episodes of Mythic
Quest. That's soon. If I'm going to make a recommendation, while I was on my cruise, I was 7 days without internet, people. Me. I'm the most online man in the world, and it was great. And I think that what I did was actually I read a book, read lots of books, actually. Right when I got married, it's been this long. Maybe it's not been that long. I came across a book series. Like I was in a Barnes & Noble, like an actual physical bookstore. So we're talking like 2011-ish, maybe, right? It was right before I went on my honeymoon, even though I got married in 2009. There's this big book cover, and it had it had a George R. R. Martin quote in the cover. And I had been reading I'd read all of Game of Thrones at that point that was available. And it was an R. R. Martin quote, and it was like a space opera. And I'm like, well, I love science fiction, so I'm going to pick this up. His first book was called Leviathan Falls. No, Leviathan Wakes. That's the first one. And it was the first book in a series called The Expanse. Ended up getting turned into a 6-season sci-fi and then Amazon show that was really good, but also only covered 2/3 of the books. So I have only read before this cruise, I'd only read the first 6 of the 9 books. I stopped reading because I had a child, and I lost my mind for the better part of 4.5 years and just wasn't able to read. And so I picked up these books, and I was like, oh, I like reading. This is great. So I don't know if I'll be able to stick to it, because it's hard to read in basketball. So I just get tired. Like, you guys know how much stuff I do. I end up staying up till like 2:30 in the morning. But I reading has been good for my brain, good for my mental health, good for my not being on the internet. So that would be my kind of short recommendation, is the Expanse series. It is available anywhere, but each book is about 600 pages long. So yeah, I didn't really plan to end on recommendations, but I think this is a good way to,
I was
to
say
go about things.
Yeah, TV and book recommendations. I mean, that's like my wheelhouse. I love it.
I'm really embarrassed about how excited I am for House of the Dragon.
Okay, no,
Sunday.
you shouldn't be embarrassed, because I've been like complete like a child walking around my job just asking, hey, are you excited? Like, everybody that I remember like talking with Game of Thrones about, I've been going up to them and just like, hey, are you excited about House of Dragon? And they're at least like half of them are like 100% like, oh, is that starting? And I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Have you heard Jason Concepcion's HBO official podcast?
No.
He has an official podcast sponsored by HBO. It is only 3 episodes deep. It's only about 30 minutes an episode. He actually gets to interview George R.R. Martin. You'll finish it now that I've told you about it, but it's something else. Anyways, this is really delved off the path, but you know what? Like we said, it's August. I'm not sure what's coming next. I'm trying to do these episodes where I've been talking to guys with other teams. I have on the schedule a guy from New Orleans that I know, and then I have an unscheduled but agreed to discussion with a friend of mine who does Oklahoma City stuff. I'm trying to dip into Western Conference people. I don't really care about Eastern Conference teams. So that's sort of stuff that's coming next. Right. So, well, Ben, thank you so much for taking this much of your Wednesday. Ben has been writing stuff, which you should go read it all over at MavsMoneyball.com. I'm not even going to list it off. I've not written shit, as we have discussed, but maybe I'll get back to it soon. You got anything else before we get out of Dodge?
No, that's it. Watch Reservation Dogs. Like, start it now. Everyone listening.
That's actually because we just finished. That was going to be the next thing I watch, because it's on Hulu. Like not switching services is really helpful.
Yeah, Hulu and FX specifically, they have my number. So
yeah, there's some good stuff. I need to watch Prey. Like that.
Oh my gosh, yes, you need to watch Prey. It's like the second best Predator movie after the original.
Yeah, that's quite the endorsement. All right, guys. Kirk Henderson, Ben Zadell. We've been having a great time here on Mavs Moneyball After Dark. You can find us. Please subscribe. Please like using your favorite podcast platform. It is very helpful to us. Maybe Ben will call him on more often, because Ben likes things other than basketball and Halo. Just kidding, Josh. We love you. All right. I'll talk to you soon, guys. Have a good week.